Our next presenter is Mr. David Kulicki. David Kulicki is the education chair of Urantia Book Fellowship. He's a third-generation reader who joined the first Urantia Society in 1973, and he's the current president of that society. He's an English and music teacher who's a tutor and also teaches students in China, both online and in Sichuan. He lives in Lincolnshire, Illinois with his wife, Marilyn, and is active in the Urantia, and she is also active in the Urantia Revelation and does workshops across the country with David. Together, they have 3 children, 5 grandchildren, I think, and ever number of pets, both theirs and their neighbors. David, it's up to you.
Well, thank you, Chris. I think I want to switch my topic and talk about my pets, but probably it's a little late for that. However, it's not irrelevant because the topic we're talking about is evolution, the exact topic, and it's time I put up my PowerPoint, is the significance of evolution within the teachings of the Urantia book. And I should point out that I'll start with the premise that whenever my good friend Chris asks me to do something, I always say yes. Not necessarily wisely, but with a great deal of enthusiasm and passion. And he let me know late Sunday that he wanted me to do this right after the crack of noon. So, of course I said yes, but Chris and I see Andre and Marilyn and I and several other people are involved in an initiative to try to start building intense classes to bring people in from around the world to help support them as they go back to their cultures and teach the Urantia book. And so it was my honor, privilege, and difficulty to do the first paper. We're still in the alpha stage, so we're practicing for each other. And 2 weeks ago, I did a presentation on the concept of evolution as the first week of our second trimester, which introduces part 3. So when Chris asked me, I thought, if I'm going to get something done by Friday, it's take what I've just been doing and adapt it a little bit for. Am I aiming for 10 to 8? Am I the 50 after? Is that what I'm aiming for?
55 after, yeah.
55, okay. So anyway, this is a variation, and Andre, if you get a little bored because you saw much of it, that's okay. I won't mind. Not that you should leave, but I'll be able to accept a look of indifference on your face, okay? That'll be okay. This is a very important topic in the Urantia book. I kind of like looking at what I think are the core themes of the book. And I would say this is one of the half-dozen core themes. It pertains to a number of different relevant ideas. So the point is wrapped up in the title, The Significance of Evolution Within the Teachings of the Urantia book. And right off the bat, one of the few quotes I've been able to remember on a consistent basis: can you not advance in your concept of God's dealing with man to that level where you recognize that the watchword of the universe is progress? The watchword of the universe is progress. It's what we're built to do. And you're going to see it applies on a number of different levels. And I truly believe that if we understand that this is true, we can engage with what the book is telling us to a better degree. There is in the mind of God a plan which embraces every creature of all his vast domains. And that plan is an eternal purpose of boundless opportunity, unlimited progress, and endless life. And you're going to see, I'm going to close in a few minutes when we finish. I'm sorry? Is there a comment somebody wants to make? Oh, okay. remember that I was the fortunate recipient the last time I did one of these when there was a deluge of, how shall I put this gently, obscenities that broke in from outside. And it was an interesting experience because even my students don't do that to me. Oops. So these are my comments here. Those are cave paintings, or maybe they're paintings of cave paintings. They're also a symbolic rendition of what should happen if you want to say something. The method of achieving growth through evolution applies to the individual, the planet, and every level of the grand universe. The Urantia book is rife with descriptions of taxonomies, hierarchies, and other developmental and evolutionary paths we will follow. I'll give you some statistics in a little bit, but they don't even begin to cover it. Not only do ascending will creatures follow developmental paths, their material worlds of origin, the grand universe of time and space, and the experiential deity, the supreme being, also follow evolutionary courses that lead from material growth to mindal development and to personality integration. That idea right there, material growth to mindal development to personality integration, is a motif that we'll see. Well, we won't see because we don't have time to get into each sub-theme, but that's an important idea to keep in the back of your mind. All of which supports spiritual progress that will eventually result in perfection. The concept of reaching perfection through evolutionary growth is one of the key concepts in the Urantia book. And I call this Kaiserizing, because one of Marilyn and my good friends is Ken Kaiser, whom a lot of you know. And he will always be able to tell you when you've read a quote. And the Urantia book mentions chop suey 717 times. And it tells you right off the bat how significant it is. The part about chop suey I made up, but this I did not. The word evolution or derivation of it appears over 500 times in the Urantia book. Progress appears over 400 times. Marilyn, you saw me put that space back in. And develop or development appears over 300 times. But that's only a small part of it, because there are also many, many comments that use none of these words, such as the taxonomies I talk about. For instance, the rule of living that Jesus uses to discuss higher and higher and more appropriate applications of the golden rule. Nothing in there says anything about progress or develop or evolution, but that's what it's about. And all the triads that we get, truth, beauty, goodness, for instance, that particular one is not developmental, but most of them are. Fact, meaning, value, for instance. There are also 9 paper titles and 26 section titles that include a variation of the word evolution. Significantly, but not surprising, they all appear in parts 2 and 3. Variations of development appear 4 times among the titles, while versions of growth appear 5 times and of progress 6 times. These are just the titles, not just comments about it. Entire sections that are devoted to this concept. And if you want to go right to the commentary of why evolution is so richly important, I would suggest you want to go read paper 65, sections 32.3 and 56.7. I'll leave that up for just a second if you want to write that down, or you can write to me and I'll send you this PowerPoint. All right, so I'm at the point where I can start having people read. Now, these are 4 different quotes. There's so many good references in the Urantia book about this concept. And I just didn't want to let go some of the ones that I think are the most important. So let's see, Stuart, would you read the quotes on this page, please?
Yes, David, thank you. And 117, it's the epitome of evolutionary growth, is it not? It is. So let me read this. Let's see if I can do it justice. To mortal man, existence is equivalent to growth. And so indeed it would seem to be, even to the larger universe. 116, preceding paper. In the evolutionary super universes, energy matter is dominant, except in personality, where spirit, through the mediation of mind, is struggling for mastery. The goal of the evolutionary universes is the subjugation of energy matter by mind, the coordination of mind with spirit, and all of this by virtue of the creative and unifying presence of personality, that unique gift from our Father. Thank you, Lord. Thus, in relation to personality, do physical systems become subordinate? I love the engineering language of the revelators. They redefine English beautifully. Physical systems become subordinate, mind systems coordinate, and spirit systems directive. You could almost say superordinate. That would be in line with a lot of the pattern of the revelation. Do you want me to go any further, or are we okay there, David?
Well, I want to make a comment on that last one since you paused. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. That's not what I meant to do either. You read so nicely, and you put the emphasis on the right thing. And if I slip into comments like this, it's because I'm spending 3-4 hours a day making comments like this to my students, most of whom are in the United States, but a few of whom are in China. And you can tell when people are emphasizing because the right thing, because it means they're getting the meaning of it. And Stuart is just amazing. And I would have said, what a wise choice of me to start with Stuart as the first reader, but actually I was just going across the top of the rope. Anyway, that second, the paragraph that Stuart just read, it is very parallel, reflective, reminiscent of something that is on page 1227, is it, I think, in Personality Survival. But this is about the Supreme. So if you want to understand the course of evolution that we'll be taking as individuals during our sojourn ascending through the universe, just know, to me, I do not think it is an allegory or a parallel. The Supreme is going through on his, her, it level. It depends on where you're reading in the book, which pronoun to use. The same thing that we are. This is the path of individual evolution, and the Supreme is doing it just as we are. And every now and then, even in the first 9 papers of the book, when you're reading about the Trinity, you get little reflections of this same idea, which to me is the most exciting, one of the most exciting parts of the book. It's so well integrated. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this is me again, David, right?
It is.
Okay, well, I can do it.
You don't know that.
Well, wow, this is a hard one, though. It's a total of like 6 words, 7 words. I don't know if I can do it. I'll do it.
Breath.
Evolution. Evolution, okay, that's your focus, is the rule of human development. And what are we classified as? Ascendant sons. Nothing but the potential to actualization of our blooming, emerging development, or as you say, evolution. It's all tied in, isn't it, David?
Yes, it is. And one more, the page.
Oh, okay, one more. Okay, I can do that. You got to move down a touch.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
I
but
can.
you didn't, no, I don't
I don't
know.
know if you can move down because I can read what I can read, but I only see part of what's there. This is 134.8, right?
Yeah, I can't move down because if I try to scroll, it goes to the next
I'll
page.
tell you what. Why don't you read it if you can see it?
I can see it.
Okay. Why don't you do that? Because I don't see the rest of it.
Okay. Yes, 130, paper 130, section 4, paragraph 8. Intelligent and progressing life becomes, in and of itself, an incontrovertible proof of the existence of a purposeful universe expressing the will of a divine creator. And this life, in the aggregate, struggles towards higher values, having for its final goal the universal Father. We just summarized the age of the Supreme. So these are all just really good things. Before we go on, does anybody have any comments? Besides Stuart, because I know Stuart always has comments.
Anyone?
Is that, I would. How do I say your name? Mr. Abbott Galvao, did you want to say something? Okay, you were unmuted there for a second. Well, we'll go on then. All right. So these are the things that you explore at a course, and I had quotes for all these, but we're not going to go into them. I just wanted you to see some of the major themes within, as it says, the thousands of references in the Urantia book that relate to evolution and developmental progress. So here are some of them. Oops. Ricardo, would you like to read these 10 themes? No? Okay, shall I go on?
Yeah, not everyone on this is a native English speaker, David, because we've got multiple translations going.
Yeah, I know. I'm just going down the line. Okay, so I'll look for volunteers. Who'd like to read? Because I'm going to stumble over my lack of familiarity with some people. Oh, Lauren, thank you. Our daughter's name is Lauren.
Oh, certainly I'm happy to read. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very well.
All right. There are many themes within the thousands of references in the Urantia book that relate to evolution and developmental progress. Here are some of the main ones. Number 1, there are 3 levels of life production and evolution.
And that would be on a planet like ours, and they're talking about the material level leading to mind, and the mindal level, which prefaces, finally grows to the spiritual. Go ahead.
Evolution, number 2, evolution is always purposeful, not accidental. Number 3, life carriers begin and guide the evolution of life on our planet, but are limited as to how they can interfere. 4, life carriers had many options should some lines of evolution not have been successful. 5, while evolution within the human species is still occurring, humankind must solve its ongoing evolutionary problems without extraterrestrial help. 6, the 7 mind adjutants reflect biological evolution on a planet, the progress of which will culminate with will creatures.
And the will creatures on Urantia were, of course, Andon and Fonsa. The first 6 are really dealing with planetary evolution. Now we're getting more into the individual evolution that each of us is striving to do, beginning here and then continuing through our ascended careers. Go ahead, number 7.
Number 7, matter, mind, and spirit. Mind development must first be based on matter before it can then lead to spirit growth. 8. Evolution and revelation. Revelation must and does always keep in touch with evolution. 9. Our universe path, our progressive developmental path, does not end with mortal death. Rather, it starts on our mortal planet of origin and then continues during our entire ascendant career till paradise and beyond. And 10, the significance of evolutionary progress is reinforced by the fact that it occurs throughout the levels of reality in the universe of time and space.
So when we first think about evolution, we tend to think in terms of the planet and the path that species take as they go higher and higher and higher. And that shows up here. The two that I think we focus on most are going to be 9 and 10. Our universe path beginning now, matter, mind, and spirit, and that quotation we saw that also described the growth of the Supreme, and the fact that development, progress, evolution takes place throughout the universe of time and space, and then on some other levels too, which we'll look at. Lauren, you have a wonderful speaking voice. All right, who would like to read this page? Richard, thank you. Or did you want to make a comment? I just saw your hand.
Oh, I can do both if you want, David. My comment was, I was going to ask you or anybody on this circuit what they think the meaning of organic evolution is. It's a term that appears 11 times in the book. And shall I go ahead and read that paragraph?
Yes, and as you're reading it, let's think about your question, organic evolution.
Start with 9241.
No, you can start right up. This is a quotation from an essay
Right.
that Elizabeth Callahan sent to me as part of our class 2 weeks ago.
All right.
And Marilyn, why aren't there quotation marks here? Okay. These are all the things that Marilyn corrected for me and then didn't show up. Go ahead, Richard. Thank you.
It also happens that revelation is itself evolutionary in nature. Not more is given than can be received and understood in any given generation. And it is always progressive in nature, building on and encompassing all previous revelations to the self or to the planet. Revelation is evolutionary, but always progressive. Down through the ages of a world's history, the revelations of religion are ever expanding and successively more enlightening. It is the mission of revelation to sort and censor the successive religions of evolution. But if revelation is to exalt and upstep the religions of evolution, then must such divine visitations portray teachings which are not too far removed from the thought and reactions of the age in which they are presented. Thus must and does revelation always keep in touch with evolution. Always must the religion of revelation be limited by man's capacity of receptivity.
That last sentence is extremely important. We don't get epical revelations until they're appropriate. Sometimes appropriate in anticipation, such as with Machiavelli, the third of the 5 we've had. But at the point where they can do some good. They're not there to circumvent the steps that we can take as a society, as a planet, or as individuals. So our auto revelations, our self revelations, the same thing. We are going to get these bits of help if we have reached a point where we can do something with them. And this is about religion, but there's a parallel. There are comments parallel to religion too. So Bill, you are next, and then let's see, there's another hand, but I don't see it.
Okay, thank you. I was just going to say, limited by man's capacity of receptivity, that also goes along with the will of each and every individual to be receptive to the revelations that are given. But a lot of them are bound in fear by the current ecclesiastical authority, and that's what's keeping people in relative darkness.
Thank you. David, you are next.
Evolutionary process taking place now, although not quite sure what it is, and if anybody has anything to add to this. But yeah, there's evolution. I just read recently in the Thought Adjuster papers composed by Solitary Messenger. And they make a very curious comment, and he doesn't really expand on it. And I'm sure they put that in there so that we could think about it. And that is, I have to paraphrase, something to the effect, we look with favor upon your immediate, the plans of your immediate planetary supervisors to foster and conserve the more spiritual mortals. And this comment was brought on because as time has progressed, there have been fewer and fewer people who could safely function with a self-acting adjuster. So what are they doing by fostering conserving? And this all falls right into, evolution. I mean, evolution is more than just the planetary evolution, physical, but it's, it's mindful and spiritual. So yeah, and they leave it at that. There's plenty there to speculate on. Thank you.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Rick, could you restate your, I only caught, I went out to get a cup of coffee actually. Could you restate your question on organic evolution?
What does it mean to you when they use the modifier organic?
Well, I'll offer a possible explanation. Now, I'm sure there's people here that could get to it better than me, but when they say organic evolution, I'm thinking of the evolution that has occurred since the initial, implantation of life, Anda and Fanta, and what, and what is evolving here, as versus upstep in evolution when you have infusions of things like the mortal germplasm into the evolutionary line. So when they're talking about organic, in other words, there's that injunction that we now have to solve our problems here, or our genetics or evolution with what we've got here, with no extraterrestrial help like we had if Adam and Eve were even still here. So if they were still here, we would be getting more and more infusion of the violet. And when I think of organic, I think about what has happened literally on, started and everything on this planet, where Adam and Eve, of course, did not develop initially on this planet. They came, So that's kind of when I look at the word organic, that's sort of what it means to me. Now, other people here may take exception to that, and I can understand there are probably 15 or 1,000 different other explanations, but that's one that I will offer to you.
If you don't mind, I'm going to put the this back up again, because it certainly pertains to this concept number 7 right here, matter, mind, and spirit. But there are some qualifying subtopics that I think you touched on, Marjorie. Organic have to do with the plant and animal growth, including what leads to will creatures, and after that as well. When the first will creatures come, okay, the life carriers can't do the same things they've done. Most of them leave. There are still other things that go on. You can still have material in animal growth, but it's going to be more up to the people who do it, especially on this planet. So it certainly refers to physical growth. Bill, you had a comment.
Okay. Evolution, as I see it, as explained in the Urantia book, is one of the major tools that God used to create. I mean, that the gods, Jesus and the Heavenly Father, used evolution as a means of creation. And that also works with us as humans too. I mean, we start off with as an egg and a sperm, and then we evolve into these people that we become. I mean, these bodies, and also that's how we grow, and then the body evolves, and then eventually it will, you know, that's our temporary vehicle for the life in this world, and then we go on to a new body, and we continue to evolve all the way up until we finally reach our Heavenly Father, and then we get the embrace, and we become a finaliter. Evolution is a tool of creation, and too bad that too many people in the past 100 years or so really thought that evolution was evil. But evolution is actually, you know, we all evolve.
Yes.
I mean, those bodies evolved, and then we evolve in life as we learn and pick up new ideas and new thoughts and everything else, and then that's how we evolve also. So evolution is a tool of creation.
Thank you very much. Well, I want to go on and keep that thought in mind, because it, I think, is most certainly something we need to have as a premise upon which we're operating. So I wrote this, and I think I see the problem, Marilyn. I did the one that never mind. Religion is not the only area in which evolution and revelation work together. The previous slide talked about that. Even with the Urantia book, the greatest motivator there is to seek a broad and liberal education, we benefit by putting the teachings of the book in context with evolutionary accomplishments in areas such as astronomy, philosophy, education, and evolution itself. One of the interesting things here is that I do not claim by any means whatsoever to be an expert in this topic. I kind of need that on still. How is that going away? Because I'm only going to be on here for a second. The concept of evolution is changing. It doesn't mean that everything that Darwin said was wrong, but it's modulating and becoming much more specific. So what you see, there's a strand of DNA, and here is a fairly typical geologic time scale based on evolutionary evolution. And there's a lot of great things, but now there are people who are starting to see that evolution is much less simplistic than people once thought, and that some of the things that have shown human progress, all progress, took more help than we thought. Bill Gates is describing DNA as software that help things along. And it's not at all in contrary to what the Urantia book is saying. And I've often thought, I don't see how you get from a one-celled animal to the trillions of improvements possessed by each of you by accident. It's just too many things that had to line up. So it appears that all human progress is effected by a technique of conjoint revelational evolution. And I like this too from Elizabeth. She wrote, every advancing step embraces all the steps before it and implies some planning. Okay, so let's see, who's next to read? James, would you be interested in reading? Yes, I agree, it's matter, but I just lost it again. Is somebody else taking the that off the screen besides me? I don't know how that keeps disappearing. There, okay, no, that's not up. It's going to be tough for James to read if he can't see it. Okay, no, that's not the next. Oh yeah, okay, so now we get into a series of slides that deal with evolution of different kinds. So the one we think of first is planetary evolution. So are you willing to read, James, or should I go on?
He put in the chat that his family's sleeping.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Patricia.
I'll read. Suzanne will read.
Okay.
Okay. Planetary evolution. All mortal inhabited worlds are evolutionary in origin and nature. These spheres are the spawning ground, the evolutionary cradle of the mortal races of time and space. Each unit of the ascendant life is a veritable training school for the stage of existence just ahead. And this is true of every stage of man's progressive paradise ascent, just as true of the initial mortal experience on an evolutionary planet as of the final universe headquarters schools of the Melchizedeks, a school which is not attended by ascending mortals until just before their translation to the regime of the super universe and the attainment of the first stage spirit existence. We conceive that physical evolution will have attained its full development by the end of the fifth epoch of the light and life era. We observe that the upper limits of spiritual development associated with evolving human minds are determined by the adjuster fusion level of conjoint Urantia values and cosmic meanings. But concerning wisdom, while we do not really know, we conjecture that there can never be a limit to intellectual evolution and the attainment of wisdom. On a seventh stage world, wisdom can exhaust the material potentials, enter upon Moda insight, and somebody just covered up the last.
Eventually even taste abstinate grandeur. But thank you. So this is about planetary evolution, but it does take it to much later epochs of a planet. Every mortal inhabited world is evolutionary in nature, origin in nature. Did I do it again? How do I keep doing this? All right, so then there's social evolution. I think this is the first time I've seen that traditional idea of evolution with female, and I just absolutely wanted to use it. It made me feel good. Cecilia, I haven't seen you for a while. Hi, Cecilia. Would you read for me?
Certainly, I'd be glad to. Good to see you too. Both of the quotes?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Spiritual insight. The brotherhood of man is, after all, predicated on the recognition of the fatherhood of God. The quickest way to realize the brotherhood of man on Urantia is to effect the spiritual transformation of present-day humanity. The only technique for accelerating the natural trend of social evolution is that of applying spiritual pressure from above, thus augmenting moral insight while enhancing the soul capacity of every mortal to understand and love every other mortal. Mutual understanding and fraternal love are transcendent civilizers and mighty factors in the worldwide realization of the brotherhood of man. Public opinion, common opinion, has always delayed society. Ooh. Nevertheless, it is valuable for while retarding social evolution, it does preserve civilization. Education of public opinion is the only safe and true method of accelerating civilization. Force is only a temporary expedient, and cultural growth will increasingly accelerate as bullets give way to ballots. Public opinion, the mores, is the basic and elemental energy in social evolution and state development. But to be of state value, it must be non-violent in expression.
That middle sentence before the semicolon is, as a professional educator, that's one of my favorite. You know, I found 130 pages of references to education, teachers, learning in the Urantia book, which we then narrowed down to about 25 really good ones. But this one here is another one that I've been able to memorize. Education of public opinion is the only safe and true method of accelerating civilization. And I think if you plug in other things besides public opinion, you could probably say the same thing about a number of other topics. That's how it has to happen. So on a secular level, I think it's that worldwide high quality of education. It takes transformed individuals to transform society. And the book never says that directly, but it says a lot of things near it. All right, how about, oh, wait a minute, everybody just moved around. Jeff, would you read?
I certainly will. Individual spiritual evolution. In cosmic evolution, matter becomes a philosophic shadow cast by mind in the presence of spirit luminosity, of divine enlightenment. But this does not invalidate the reality of matter energy. Mind, matter, and spirit are equally real, but they're not of equal value to personality in the attainment of divinity. Consciousness of divinity is a progressive spiritual experience. The purpose of cosmic evolution is to achieve unity of personality through increasing spirit dominance, volitional response to the teaching and leading of the thought adjuster. Personality, both human and superhuman, is characterized by an inherent cosmic quality, which may be called the evolution of dominance, the expansion of the control of both itself and its environment.
You may notice in putting these two quotes together how much they reflect that earlier one about matter subordinate, mind coordinate, personality is superordinate, and in the personality survival paper, the spirit is potentially directive. And again, some of the parts are scattered, but they're all repeating this a lot. Chris mentioned that Marilyn and I were barnstorming around the country giving a presentation essentially on the idea of personality, the unification of personality, which is another one of those themes that I think is core to understanding the Urantia book, it strongly integrates with the whole concept of evolution. So this section, before I give a chance for people to have a commentary again, we looked at planetary evolution, social evolution, individual spiritual evolution, and we're going to be going up and to 3 more levels or 4 more levels, I forget. So since I'm already looking at that window, Susan, one of my favorite voices, would you read, please?
Unmuted.
We unmuted.
Hi, David and everyone. The universes of time and space are gradual in development. The progression of life, terrestrial or celestial, is neither arbitrary nor magical. Cosmic evolution may not always be understandable, predictable, but it is strictly non-accidental. Can you not advance in your concept of God's dealing with man to that level where you recognize that the watchword of the universe is progress? Through long ages, the human race has struggled to reach its present position. Throughout all these millenniums, Providence has been working out the plan of progressive evolution. The 2 thoughts are not opposed in practice, only in man's mistaken concepts. Divine providence is never arrayed in opposition to true human progress, either temporal or spiritual. Providence is always consistent with the unchanging and perfect nature of the supreme lawmaker. As God, the sevenfold functionally coordinates finite evolution, so does the Supreme Being eventually synthesize destiny attainment. The Supreme Being is the deity culmination of grand universe evolution. Physical evolution around a spirit nucleus and eventual dominance of the spirit nucleus over the encircling and whirling domains of physical evolution. And all of this takes place in accordance with the mandates of personality. Paradise personality in the highest sense. Creator personality in the universe sense. Mortal personality in the human sense. Supreme personality in the culminating or experiential totaling sense.
So notice that all of these are pertaining to the age of time and space, the age of experience, the age of the supreme, the age of evolution. So the grand universe, which is the universe of all those things, time and space, is also the universe of the Supreme Being, who is evolving from being God the Supreme. But all of that we are going through on an individual basis, on a planetary basis, on a system basis, constellation, local universe, and so on, is putting together piece by piece by piece the eventual culmination of experience, and that's when the Supreme Being will emerge totally. This, I think, I just want to summarize as a couple things. We're running out of time, and I do want to get to the last slide. I see you, Andre. Give me a couple more slides, and then I'll call on you, okay? So we have this is setting up actually the circle of eternity, which I'm going to get to in a second. Innate perfection versus evolved perfection. So we are in the path of trying to put back together that which the I am differentiated. But even at that, the master universe, which is more than just a universe of time and space, still bears the imprint of progressive evolution, as it says right here. But I do want to get to this, and we're kind of running out of time, and I want to get to the last couple of slides. The Circle of Eternity is a hypothetical reunification. It's fictional. It's one of those frameworks of thought that the Urantia book gives us just so we understand better. It's a reunification of fragmented reality so we can better understand where things relate to each other. In this quote, each successive universe age is the antechamber of the following era of cosmic growth, and each universe epoch provides immediate destiny for all receding stages. So this slide, which I find ends up being relevant to about 80% of the workshops that I do, is in some ways entirely fictional, because it implies that after the I am differentiated into first the Trinity and then paradise, and then beginning with the age of time and space, God the Supreme, which we're going through, and I always put more than man here at the bottom because we have the farthest to go. And when this age finishes, then we'll lead into the age of the ultimate and the age of the absolute, and it's an order, it's a relationship to help us understand. But in eternity, we'll never totally put back together. But it still helps us understand to a degree what our purpose is. And so even on the level of eternity, there is a sense of progress, of order, of development, as each antechamber leads to the next chamber, as we just read. Now, where do you go? Andre, there you are.
Thank you, David. Can you get back to fascicule 4.1.2, please? Yeah, that's it. The line where it say in the middle, the two thoughts are not opposed in practice, only in man's mistaken concept. And from that sentence, I will say, when we are primitive on the planet, it's normal to be ignorant. Like, I think it is an infallible avenue to be ignorant at the start, at the bottom of the ladder. Thank you.
But just think of the joy we will have in the distance we have to go to become perfect. What a wonderful thing.
I am so happy.
I think the first workshop I did for a Urantiathon was It's a Friendly Universe. And it is.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, now let's see. What did I want to say through this? I'll summarize this. There is some concern, or maybe just perspective, and this comes from page 215, paper 19. Very often used quote that the true perspective of any reality problem needs to correlate origin, history, and destiny with the present universe problem. And then in the next paragraph, it says we employ the technique of approaching man and his planetary problems by starting at the top and going down. Well, there's a few places in the book where they do that, including the organization of the book, which starts at the center, works out, and then at the end, we're kind of aiming for paradise again. It's a paradox. And it's a paradox that's resolvable, where they say approach things from the top down. Well, how does that fit with approaching things developmentally? Well, it depends on what you're doing, and a good place to look at that is with Jesus. And so again, to summarize, when he was in the process of solving his, quote, reality problem of becoming sovereign ruler of Nebadon, he started at the top. He started with the Melchizedek and worked his way down to human. That made sense because it was a better way of understanding his experience. But as a human being, fulfilling his chief task of making his bestowal on Urantia become a developmental experience of what his creatures were like. One of my favorite quotes in the book. David, would you read this? I saw your hand up. Whoops, I did it again. Could you read this quote? And then I'm going to comment, and then you can make your comment.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, please.
Okay, so read this 127.6.
As a child.
As a child, he accumulated a vast body of knowledge. As a youth, he sorted, classified, and correlated this information. And now, as a man of the realm, he begins to organize these mental positions preparatory to utilization.
It's coming.
Slides change.
I know it's coming.
Okay, thank you, brother. In his subsequent teaching, ministry, and service on behalf of his fellow mortals on this world and on all other spheres of habitation throughout the entire universe of Nebadon.
So
we can assume that.
Go ahead.
We can assume that he probably used what he had learned holistically as he utilized what he had learned in his subsequent teaching, ministry, and service on behalf of his fellow mortals on this world and on all other spheres of habitation throughout the entire universe of Nebadon.
So what I'm getting at is, as the now sovereign ruler of Nebadon is approaching his current problem at the end of his life on Urantia, even as he continues to learn, he would be approaching it holistically. But to get to that point, as a child of Urantia, he did what it says here. This is basically reflective of Blue's taxonomy. He sorted, classified, and correlated information, and then organized these. So he did it developmentally. So these two things work together. David, you had a comment.
Yes, yeah, and just in relation to this quote, Jesus had a vision at the baptism of who he was as Michael of Nebadon. So that set the, and then he had council on the Mount of, in the Korean hills. So he counseled there. So that cleared up his vision of the Nebadon universe and his role in the universe of universes, I'd imagine. In regard to the hypothetical reality of the circle of eternity, also at certain junctures in the book, the concept of thought adjusters is also considered to be a hypothesis. Now, I don't consider the circle of eternity at all to be a hypothetical reality, but I do understand that other people do. But I consider that to be actually absolute reality for anybody who feels like they're a son of God in the kingdom of heaven. They will feel like the adjuster is their essential nucleus, which is from the circle of eternity.
Okay, well, I'm over my time, so I'm just going to say, isn't that a pretty slide? And if the watchword of the universe is progress, I would suggest you read the last paragraph on page 558, paper 48, because it really pulls things together nicely, but we don't have time to read it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.